Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Duncan Andrade, and I'm the co-founder of the Teaching Excellence Network. And this slide deck presentation will take you through a more extensive introduction to what we do in the network with our partners around the world, and give you a little more detail than you see in the introductory videos that we have available online. So, the Teaching Excellence Network is really an effort to respond to a set of challenges that we see in schools that we work in around the country that are oftentimes thought of as distinctive challenges. And we've developed the Teaching Excellence Network as a way to create a hybrid response to a set of problems that we actually see as being interconnected and not as isolated issues. And the fact that most schools are treating these as isolated issues results in a series of different initiatives which ultimately end up colliding with each other instead of supporting the development of the school and the classroom culture more community responsive. So the way that we frame up the challenge that we see in schools all over the country is that you've got a set of decisions around things like policies, budget, large-scale assessments that are being made by one group of people that are then pushed down onto another group of people that are asked to then execute those things on a day-to-day basis in schools and classrooms. And then you have a third group of people, students and families, that are typically the most disproportionately negatively impacted by those decisions. And none of those three groups are frequently in conversation with each other to design these approaches. And the result is these four problems that we have listed here that we see consistently in schools that tend to be stuck in the same place year after year after year. And as I said earlier, we don't see these four challenges as being distinctive from one another. We actually see them as interrelated and actually stacking on top of each other. The first of those challenges that TEN takes on is the lack of a common language amongst stakeholders. So we capture in that stakeholder group at the lowest level a minimum of students, families, teachers, and administrators. A number of schools in our network also include in there their whole staff, counselors, basically every adult that's working directly with kids in their school community. But if we just take that smaller snapshot, students, families, teachers, and administrators, I think if you asked any of those groups individually whether or not they think quality teaching matters, they would all, of course, say yes, but that's where the agreement pretty much ends. There isn't a common language amongst those different stakeholder groups about what quality teaching is in any particular context. And so while everyone is coming to the table saying that teaching quality matters, because there isn't an agreement about what that actually means in that particular school context, then you have all kinds of disruptions in the conversation that never really allow any collaborative or collective effort around helping to improve teaching quality. And the absence of that common language then leads to the second problem that we see, which is that a whole achievement gap discourse develops to explain why kids are not doing well in these school environments. And most of that discourse is focused on, quote unquote, fixing perceived problems with students and families. And that discourse leads to a third major problem that we see, which is a cultural deficit framework that tends to permeate the very building that these, where schools are struggling the most to really move the meter. And the result of this is that you've got on the one hand in these schools and classrooms a rhetorical commitment to partnering more closely with kids and families to address the challenges. But the reality is that it's not actually possible for you to have an authentic partnership with someone that you see as deficient. And so the fact that subtext is constantly there about the nation's most vulnerable kids and families as deficient means that partnership is never really possible. Kids and families don't want to engage the school in a meaningful way because they know that the school doesn't respect them. And the school can't actually figure out how to engage them in a meaningful way because they see them as deficient. And then the fourth challenge that our initiative takes on is the fact that most of the conversation about then addressing these things to improve teacher quality tends to be focused primarily on punitive approaches to teacher growth. And there's very little in the way of actually syncing these earlier three challenges up as a way to actually start thinking about how do we give teachers the meaningful feedback data on what's going on in their classroom, and then actually professionalize them enough to allow them to work with their colleagues to improve their practice. And, you know, from the Federal Department of Education all the way down to classrooms that I work in around the country, I say the same thing when it comes to this whole conversation about us having a data-driven response to what's going on in schools. I actually think that's a really good idea. The problem is that we're looking at all the wrong data. Right now, most of the data that is driving teacher feedback and teacher growth and teacher evaluation is outcome data. And if you look at most of the fields that are really committed to growth mindsets, really committed to change over time, they're not using outcome data to drive how they improve their performance. They're actually looking at process data. And in our field, we don't really have a way right now to gather process data being data on what is actually happening on a day-to-day basis between teachers and students, between teachers and families, between teachers and teachers. And if we don't actually get hold of that process data, then we are just guessing about what is happening classroom to classroom to classroom to produce the results that we're so concerned about, or to produce results that we're really happy with. And so the goal of our network is to a strategy for getting teachers meaningful process data so that they can figure out where they actually are in their classroom, to develop their own IEP, their own customized growth plan based on how they're teaching in their classroom, and then to create the opportunities for way more collaboration teacher to teacher so that they can actually respond to that growth plan and improve their practice no matter how good they are or no matter how much they're struggling. So the way that we do that is really approach. The first phase in the Teaching Excellence Network is what we call the priority survey, and then this leads to a feedback loop for teachers, which then leads to teachers to a series of different work they can to start getting feedback on their classroom and improving what's happening in there every single day. So let's start with the priority survey. The priority survey consists of 52 teacher qualities that we culled from the research. We spent about 10 years, no pun intended, we spent about 10 years reviewing a massive body of research on what are the qualities that the most successful teachers have in some of the nation's most vulnerable communities. And we looked at some of the most conservative research, some of the more middle-of-the-road stuff, and some of the most progressive stuff. And what we were looking for was recurring themes. And we found 52 of them, 52 things that continually seem to be popping up study after study after study as things that really successful teachers do. And we sorted those 52 qualities into these three domains that you see here in the center of the circle: relationships, responsibility, and relevance. And so what happens is if a school is using the Teaching Excellence Network, the first thing that happens is that all of their stakeholders take the same survey. And again, the stakeholders, the sort of lowest bar when we say all stakeholders is students, families, teachers, and administrators. And we set it up kind of like a solitaire game where those stakeholder groups can go on a tablet, they can go on a computer, or they can go on their cell phone if they have a smartphone, and they can drag and drop 7 qualities for each of the 3 domains most important for that particular school context. The idea here is to say that, look, it's all well and good to have 30,000-foot level standard to have 10,000-foot level district initiatives, to have 5,000-foot level school-wide initiatives. But at the end of the day, teaching and learning is about ground truthing those high-level ideas. And that means really asking the people that are the most impacted by those higher level ideas, what are these things inside of that larger umbrella? Which of those things matter most for this particular school community where we are right now? And that's the idea of the priority survey, is that we ask everybody, of all those things, which of these qualities matters most to you for somebody to be successful in this particular school context. And what happens is that you get back reports at the classroom level, the school level. If the district is doing it, you get district level reports. If the state is doing it, you get state level reports, and so forth. So the reports are tiered out. And what we find happening in schools that are using the Teaching Excellence Network is a set of conversations start that no school really has, because they don't have this data. Nobody's really asking their clients what is most important. And so once you start getting that data, and it's important to note here that the data is instantaneous. There's no more waiting for your data report. The minute somebody takes a priority survey, your report screen is automatically updated. And what we're seeing happening in schools is two types of conversations as a result of this initial data. The first conversation that's happening is there's an immediate opportunity to partner, because it is immediately clear of these qualities everybody's agreeing on. And that is the proverbial low-hanging fruit. So any initiatives that you have, any strategies that you have, any ideas that you might have even as an individual teacher, you can immediately operationalize around some set of the qualities that everybody is saying, yes, these are really important. But then you have another set of qualities where there's that we find all the time, that students and families are prioritizing quality X, and teachers and administrators are prioritizing quality. And this results in a sort of fork in the road, so to speak. That what we're finding is as there's some inquiry into what that disagreement is about, there's usually one of two causes. The first cause is that kids and teachers and administrators are actually saying the same thing, calling it something different. It's a pure semantical difference. And once there's an opportunity to dialogue about those things, and it becomes clear that, oh, actually, we're talking about the same thing, we're just calling it something different, then there can be agreement. Okay, then going forward, let's agree we're going to call it this. And then now we're back into that original set where, okay, we're all agreeing that this matters, and we can link and leverage around that because we'll all come to the table saying that that's important. The other thing that happens is that real ideological differences are surfaced. Kids and families are saying, no, this is the most important to me, and teachers and administrators are not saying that. And we don't aim to resolve those ideological differences. Rather, we value the surfacing of those things so that there can be ongoing dialogue about those differences. And it's the silencing of those differences that is actually really toxic for schools. It's the fact that nobody ever asks kids and families what's important to them that is really toxic for schools, and that really undermines any effort to have authentic partnerships. You can't have an authentic partnership with somebody that you don't ask what's important to them. You just do stuff to them and then ask them to respond after you do it. So this begins to democratize the process by which the priorities for good teaching are identified by all the people that are involved in that process in a school site. The other cool thing about the priorities survey data is how you can filter it. So you can go over here and you can look at, well, what did my say Black male students pick? So you can click on students, Black, African American, and male, and all data will resort to just be the things that Black male students pick. You could pick, what do my Spanish-speaking families pick? And so on and so forth. And so now you can have initiatives that are actually directly targeted to the priority of any particular racial group, gendered group, language group, and way, teachers and schools can be much more community responsive to the things that those particular is most important. The priority survey and priority survey on average, and this is in hundreds and hundreds of schools, it takes on average complete. Okay, so most the priority survey 2 weeks, a back to school night, and then they do some additional outreach. But after the priority survey closes, what happens is that all of that input from all those stakeholders go through what we call an equity algorithm, and the top 12 qualities for any school are then churned out. And then what happens is that most schools do a feedback loop twice a year on those 12 qualities. And so typically schools are doing it around the report card, semester report card period. So say early, mid-January, and then again somewhere mid-late May, early June. And so as kids are getting their report cards, teachers are also getting a so-called report card or feedback. So what happens is that every teacher has their own account, and teachers hold all their own data. So nobody can see the feedback that teachers get unless an individual teacher chooses to share it. And what happens is that students, families, select colleagues, then go onto that teacher's profile site, and they give them feedback on the 4 qualities for each of the 3 domains that were selected just for their school site. And there's 2 types of feedback that teachers get. So in this case, this teacher's, one of the 12 qualities that was selected for her school was lessons reflect culturally relevant preparation. So what happens is that if I'm a student in Ms. Sanchez's class, then I go on and I say, oh, she needs improvement on that, or she's excellent on that. And teachers that are on our network say, you know, that's cool. It's cool to know that I need improvement, or I'm excellent at having culturally relevant lessons. But what I really need to know is why. Why do I need improvement? Why am I excellent? And that's the second kind of feedback that teachers get. So once somebody gives them a rating, then they're asked to explain it. And they're asked to give very concrete examples about why they gave that teacher that rating. And this is the feedback that teachers in our network love, because it is very concrete, it is very direct, and it is specific to the things that they are actually doing in their classroom every day. And then this feedback is gathered into a feedback loop report. And this is real data from one of the teachers that is in our network, and she agreed to let us show her data as a way to kind of model what the network does. But the reason I really like Jessica's data is because, you know, first of all, it's on a scale of 10, so she's an 8 point out of 10. She's an excellent teacher. I've been in her classroom. I've known her for a long time. She really is an excellent teacher. But what's most intriguing to me about Jessica's data is actually the second tier of data. So you get an overall score, and then you get a score inside of each of the 3 domains. And typically, when we drop down into here, we see an outlier. So we'll see something like 8.9, 8.9, 6.2. And then this teacher knows, okay, something's going on in the 4 qualities that I got feedback on and responsibility, and he or she can click in here, and then all the data resorts to just be the responsibility domain. But what's interesting about Jessica's data is that it's a flat line. She's really good in all 3 domains. So we actually drop down into the raw data on here, see what it is that Jessica should be focusing her growth plan on. And if you look here in this quality, one of the qualities that Jessica's school community selected was lessons reflect knowledge of issues affecting students. And if you jump over here, you see her colleagues gave her a 9.4 out of 10. They said she's excellent. And her families gave her a 9 out of 10. They said she's excellent. But her kids gave her a 7.8. And if we were to click in here, all the data would resort to just be data from students on this quality. So all these, here's the comments down here, all these would resort to just be comments from students about this particular quality. And then, again, you could filter it. So she could look at, well, is this just an issue with my boys? Is it just an issue with my girls? So she could click in here, click on students, click on gender, male or female, and all the data would resort to just be feedback from boys or from girls. She could look at how she's doing with Black male students. She could look at how she's doing with Latino females. Any way she wants to filter it, she can get really, really granular with her feedback and with any particular group of students. And then what happens is that every teacher creates their own profile page to start responding to the feedback that they get and developing a customized growth plan. And a number of teachers that are in our network have actually referred to this as, I'm using air quotes right now, Facebook for teachers. And the idea here is that the goal of this network is to end the isolation of teaching. At best right now, good practice gets shared inside of a building. At worst, it gets isolated in individual classrooms. And what we're saying is look, every teacher that is struggling with something right now in this country, there is some other teacher in this country that has struggled with that same thing and unlocked it. And there's no reason that those teachers shouldn't be able to connect with each other and share. And so that's the idea of this third strand, is to allow teachers to both identify what the priorities are for their school community and then begin to link both inside of their building, in their region, in their state, in the country, and around the world with other teachers that are also working on those same things, to share the best of what they've got in those areas, but also to reach out and call out for support from other people that might be better at that thing than they are, that can share curriculum, that can share conferences, that can share video links, or that can just share their email and create a dialogue amongst professionals that are working on these things to be more community responsive in their classrooms and in their schools. So the last piece is once teachers get this kind of feedback data, then we work with schools to completely redo how they run PD. Right now, most PD that we interact with, even ones that I'm invited to, are oftentimes a one-size-fits-all, a sit-and-get that is not differentiating instruction for teachers, even though for years now, we've argued that you have to differentiate classroom instruction for students. We have not followed suit in the ways in which we teach and coach teachers. And so we work with schools to set up a much more differentiated, teacher-driven approach to professional development in the school. And the way that we do this is we work with schools to set up PLCs. Now, you all may be familiar with PLCs as professional learning communities, or some other version of that acronym, but we've tried to reclaim the acronym, and what we call our PLCs are Praxis Learning Communities, because Praxis, this idea of critical reflection, action, return to critical reflection in a collective group of colleagues, that's the structure that we set up in schools. And we have three sort of non-negotiables before we will work with a school to set up PLCs. The first is that all of the teacher development in the school that we're working with them on has to be driven by listening to the community's needs. So you have to pay attention to the 12 things that and when I say the community, I mean not only kids and families, but also the teachers. And so we got to pay attention to what are the 12 things that emerged in the priority survey, and then what is the feedback saying that teachers need to work on. And then second, we insist that a tremendous amount of control is given to the teachers to drive their own professional growth, to make decisions about how they want to spend their time, to work on the things that emerge in their growth plans. And then third, we believe in creating a building culture where teachers are teaching teachers. Teachers are sharing their strengths, and teachers are sharing their struggles, and they're counting on their colleagues to help them work through those, and they're counting on their colleagues to be able to learn from them as well. So the way that it works is PLCs are typically 6 to 8 teachers, and they tend to, the design tends to vary widely school to school. Some people do it by grade level, some people do it by subject area, some people do it by self-selection. And really, there's no clear evidence in the research about which model is any better. That what most of the research suggests is that if you give teachers autonomy over how to set up the groups, that's what's most successful. So after we help teachers get the group set up, then the first 4 sessions are fairly scripted, and we call that the baseline. And then the baseline leads into a circuit that is almost completely driven by the teachers themselves. And typically we ask that as a minimum that PLCs meet twice a month for an hour and a half per session on contract time, not as additional time, but this should be part of the teacher's development day. And what we're finding is that the schools that are doing this are actually pushing more and more of their PD time to PLCs because it's being so productive. But twice a month, an hour and a half is the minimum. So the way the baseline works is that the first meeting in a PLC, no data allowed. And instead, what we walk teachers through is a process whereby they're asked to dream again. And they're asked to revisit this question, which is, who have you always wanted to be as a teacher? And we take them through a set of exercises where they're basically asked to narrate their best self as a teacher. And in our experience, this is the highest lever of accountability we have seen anywhere in the country. Nothing designed externally to a teacher is going to be as profound as what that teacher expects from themselves. And those external measures are not going to be as respected by teachers as the internal measures that you actually hear from teachers. And when you ask teachers this question, I mean, we've asked thousands of teachers around the country this question, and to a person, everyone sets the bar so high on themselves. They're saying, I want to connect with students. I want to connect with families. I want kids to really love my class. I want to teach the subject matter in a way that is exciting. I mean, all the things that we know are directly related to success as a teacher. Teachers are saying, I want that for myself. So we let them set the bar on themselves, okay? And then once the bar is set, then we start looking at some data, okay? And we look at we look at the priority survey data, and we take them through another set of questions, and we have them answer the question of, who does your community need you to be? Okay, and then we backwards map that onto their initial response set of questions about who they want to be, and we start asking them, well, how does that match up? Where's their alignment? Where's their misalignment between who you've always wanted to be as a teacher and who this community is actually saying that they need you to be? Okay, and this is happening in collaboration with other teachers in the building, somewhere between 6 and 7 other teachers, to foment a dialogue about who their colleagues actually want to be, and who this community actually needs them to be, and where that aligns and where that misaligns. And then the third meeting that they have is they do a self-evaluation on the feedback loop. And they start looking at, well, okay, so you told us who you want to be, and we've talked about who the community needs you to be, and now let's see where you think you are right now. Let's baseline where you think you are. And so teachers do a self-evaluation on the feedback loop. They give themselves a score, okay? And then this is, in research, what we refer to as the golden triangle. Because now they have 3 distinctive data points. They have who am I right now, they have who the community needs me to be, and they have who they've always wanted to be. And we ask them to get those 3 data points in conversation with each other to do the 4th point, which is the center of the golden triangle, which is their first growth plan. Okay, and in this phase, they essentially answer the question, who will you become based on what your community needs you to be? Okay. And every teacher has their own growth plan. Okay, so no teacher is working on the same stuff because no teacher is in the same place in their classroom. And the idea here is to really begin to differentiate the ways in which we identify what teachers need and want to work on, and then how we support them to actually grow on those things. So Once they've completed the baseline in their PLC, then they start a circuit. And we refer to these as community responsive circuits, and this is a sort of classic example of what a community responsive circuit might look like. Each of these activities is one 90-minute meeting typically. Okay, but again, this circuit, teachers set it up however they want. They can have 3 activities in a circuit. They can have 7 activities in a circuit. It doesn't really matter. Teachers have total control over how they design this circuit to help them work on their growth plan. The idea, though, is that these teachers in this PLC, 6 to 8 teachers, are coming together. They've all shared their growth plan. They've all shared their philosophy of who they want to be. There's already this collective understanding about who everybody is at the table, why they're actually involved in this gig, and what it is that they want to work on over the next several months to grow as a teacher. And so they might start with a reading. Let's say they read, I don't know, Lisa Delpit's Other People's Children. And so everybody reads it, and then they come to the PLC, and then there's a dialogue about the book that is based on what they're working on in their growth plan. So they're filtering the reading of this book through the things that are actually relevant to their particular classroom practice. And then the next meeting, they might do a video lesson study where they look at video of one or two of the teachers in the PLC's classroom, and then they're giving them feedback through the lens of the things that teacher has said that they actually want to work on. And then they might do some curriculum design, again, focused largely on, well, you said you want to work on building authentically caring relationships with your students. Well, how does this particular curricular unit actually help you do that? Where are relationships embedded in this unit? Right? And then they might be looking at the same thing around student work, how they're assessing students, what kind of assessments they come up with, so on and so forth. And the idea is that this circuit just continues over the course of the semester with teachers teaching teachers through this process of a set of activities that they select into that make the most sense for how they want to grow. And then what happens is that somewhere around January, they hit a community feedback loop. And once they hit a feedback loop, the circuit stops. And they go back into the baseline, and they have a meeting where they revisit the golden triangle. But now, instead of number 3 being down here, number 3 being a self-assessment, now the feedback is actually coming from students and families and their colleagues. And they go back through this triangulation, and they edit their growth plan to come up with growth plan 2.0. And then they drop back into a circuit with this revised growth plan that is based on that feedback, and they remix and repeat. And this cycle continues. This is a growth mindset cycle. This is what educational scholars and researchers refer to as the cycle of critical praxis. So if this interests you, I welcome you to go on to our website and sign up, and we'll be happy to reach out to you and engage in any further conversation. You can also email me at jda@10teaching.net. Again, JDA, my 3 initials, Jeff Duncan Andrade, JDA@10teaching.net. Here you see it. And we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for giving us some of your time.